The pencil stopped moving the moment she drew the moon. Harper Sinclair knew before she even looked up that Connor Bradley was standing behind her, watching every stroke like it was a crime. She could smell him, not cologne or sweat, but something rawer. Grief. It clung to people in small towns like Millbrook, Michigan, the way factory smoke used to before the plants closed. You learned to recognize it on others because you wore it yourself. "Wrong," Connor whispered, so close she felt his breath on her neck. There was no moon that night. The cafeteria noise, 500 teenagers eating, gossiping, living faded to white static. Harper's hand trembled over her sketchbook, where Silver Lake spread across the page in careful graphite strokes. Moonlight danced on penciled waves, a scene of terrible beauty that had lived behind her eyelids for exactly 364 days. Tomorrow would make a year. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. She didn't turn around, didn't need to. In her peripheral vision, Connor's reflection wavered in her water bottle, distorted but recognizable. 6'2" of barely contained rage, wrapped in a Letterman jacket he hadn't earned since his brother died. Dark hair falling over eyes that used to be kind, back when his little brother would drag him to her mom's yard sales, hunting for comic books. "I said," Connor's voice dropped lower, dangerous. "There was no fucking moon." The thing about photographic memory, the thing doctors didn't tell you when they marveled at your gift, was that trauma burned brightest. Harper could forget where she put her keys or what she had for breakfast. But that night, every detail lived in her brain like a movie she couldn't pause. The temperature of the water, 51 degrees. The exact shade of Tyler Bradley's lips when she pulled him out. Purple-blue, like February sky. The pattern his small fingers made, clutching her jacket. And yes, the moon, full and accusatory, watching everything unfold. But she said nothing. Selective mutism, Dr. Kim called it. When stress hit certain levels, words just stopped. They piled up in her throat like a traffic jam, leaving her mute and vulnerable. It had started that night, kneeling beside Tyler on the muddy bank, trying to explain to the paramedics what happened, while Connor screamed at her from behind yellow tape. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Connor's hand slammed down beside her sketchbook, making her jump. The cafeteria went quiet, that specific silence when everyone pretends not to watch drama unfold. Harper finally turned, met his eyes, up close. Connor looked worse than angry. He looked haunted. Purple shadows under bloodshot eyes, stubble on a jaw clenched so tight she could hear his teeth grinding. His Letterman jacket hung loose on a frame that had dropped 20 pounds since last spring. "Every day," he said quietly. Words meant just for her. "You sit here, drawing like nothing happened. Like you didn't—" He stopped, swallowed, started again. "Draw it right. Harper, please. Please." The word cracked something in her chest. Because buried under all that rage was a boy who used to build blanket forts with his brother, who'd carried Tyler on his shoulders through the homecoming parade. Both of them laughing as candy rained down from floats. Who'd promised, in front of God and most of Millbrook. That he'd always protect his little brother. Some promises, Harper had learned, broke you when you couldn't keep them. She flipped to a fresh page in her sketchbook, started drawing again. Not the lake, this time Tyler's face. 7 years old, gap-toothed grin. Batman temporary tattoo on his cheek from the fair that weekend. The image came easy. Too easy. Connor made a sound like someone had punched him in the stomach. Stop. But he didn't move away. Couldn't. Maybe. Watching her pencil resurrect his brother was its own kind of torture. But grief made addicts of everyone. You'd take the pain just to feel close to what you'd lost. She added details. The way Tyler's hair stuck up in the back, no matter how much gel Connor used. The scar on his chin from learning to ride the bike Connor had saved up to buy him. Those eyes, same as Connor's, but still bright with possibility. He hated that scar, Connor said, voice hollow. Said it made him look tough. Harper's pencil paused. This was the most Connor had spoken to her since the funeral. Since he'd stood at the grave, refusing to let them lower the casket, screaming that there had been a mistake, that Tyler was just cold, just needed to warm up. She wrote in the margin of her sketch. He was brave. Connor read it. His laugh was broken glass. Brave. He was scared of the water, wouldn't even take swimming lessons. I told him, his voice caught. I told him I'd teach him myself this summer. Had it all planned out. Start in the shallow end at the Y. Work up to the lake by August. Harper knew this. It's why Tyler had been at Silver Lake that night, trying to prove to himself he could do it, trying to make his big brother proud. She'd found him at the dock, tiny figure in a too-big life jacket he'd borrowed from the marina, teaching himself to float while the spring festival carried on up the hill. She turned the page, started a new sketch. The dock this time, but during daylight. Safe. Tyler sitting on the edge, feet kicking in the water. Connor beside him. A future that never happened. Don't. Connor's hand covered the page. Don't you dare give me what could have been. But his hand stayed there, touching the paper like it was sacred. Harper noticed his class ring, the one he'd promised Tyler could wear when he got to high school. Still on Connor's finger, turned backwards now so the stone faced his palm. Hidden, protected. The bell rang. Lunch ending. Salvation arriving in the form of fifth-period obligations. Students started moving. The cafeteria returning to life. But Connor didn't budge. Lucas saw you, he said suddenly. That night. Said you were already in the water when he called 911. Harper's chest tightened. Lucas Mitchell Tyler's best friend. 9 years old and already carrying survivor's guilt like a 40-pound backpack. He'd been the one to run for help when Tyler's floating practice went wrong. She nodded carefully. He said, Connor's voice dropped to almost nothing. He said Tyler was already under when you got there, that you dove 3 times before you found him. Another nod. 3 times, she remembered. The first dive. Nothing but murky water and her own panic. The second. Her hand brushed something, a shoe, Tyler's shoe. But the current pulled her away. The third dive. Lungs screaming. She'd grabbed fabric and hadn't let go. Pulled him up through water that felt thick as concrete. Both of them breaking the surface under that damned moon. CPR, Connor continued, like he was reciting a police report. Lucas said you did CPR for 6 minutes before the ambulance came. 6 minutes and 37 seconds. She'd counted every compression. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Tyler's small chest rising and falling with her efforts. Come on, come on, come on. Water coming up from his lungs. Good. That was good. Clear the airway. More compressions. Then a cough. A real cough. Tyler's eyes fluttering open. Confused and scared. But alive. Alive. Harper grabbed her pencil. Wrote quickly. He was breathing when they took him. Connor read it. Read it again. His face went pale. Then red. Then something beyond color. Just pure emotion. Too big for skin to contain. Then why? The words exploded out of him. Loud enough that the remaining students turned to stare. If you saved him, if he was breathing, then why is my brother dead? The question hung between them like a blade. Harper felt words pile up again. Explanations and medical terms and truths that would shatter what was left of Connor's world. But her throat closed. Selective mutism winning again. Instead, she drew, fast, desperate strokes. The ambulance, the paramedics, Tyler on the gurney, oxygen mask over his small face, and, in the corner, something she'd never drawn before the red medical alert bracelet Tyler always wore, the one that listed his allergies, the one covered in mud from the lake, illegible in the chaos. Connor stared at the drawing, at the bracelet. His face changed confusion, recognition, then denial slamming down like a door. No, he grabbed the sketchbook. No, that's not you're making this up. Changing the story. His hands shook as he held her artwork. Tyler wasn't allergic to anything. I'm his brother. I would know. But even as he said it, Harper saw the doubt creeping in. Because Tyler was adopted. Because sealed records meant medical histories stayed buried. Because Connor had been 12 when his parents brought home a 2-year-old boy and said, "Meet your brother." And he'd been too happy to ask questions. She reached for her sketchbook. Connor jerked it away. All this time, he said, voice rising. All this time, I blamed you, hated you, wished it had been you who… He stopped, swallowed. But you're saying it wasn't the water. You're saying he died because of what medicine, something that was supposed to help him. Harper nodded once. Connor's face crumpled, then hardened, then crumpled again, like he couldn't decide which emotion to land on. He looked at her sketches, Tyler's face, the lake, the ambulance, and something in him snapped. He tore the pages out. Connor Madison Reeves, head cheerleader and Connor's sometimes girlfriend, rushed over. What are you doing? She's lying. Connor's voice was mechanical now, all emotion locked down. Changing what happened, making up stories, and he crumpled Harper's drawings in his fist. There was no moon. Tyler couldn't swim. And my brother died because she didn't try hard enough. Connor, stop! Madison grabbed his arm. You're scaring everyone. He laughed that broken glass sound again. Good. Maybe fear will keep them away from the lake. Keep them safe. He looked directly at Harper. You want to know what I think? I think you're drawing what you wish happened, creating some fantasy where you're the hero who tried everything. But I know the truth. He leaned in close enough that Harper could see tears he wouldn't let fall. The truth is, my 7-year-old brother went to that lake alone because I was too busy with Madison to teach him to swim. The truth is, he trusted the wrong person to save him. And the truth is that I have to live with that every single day while you get to sit here, drawing pretty pictures, pretending you don't have his blood on your hands. Harper's pencil moved without her permission. 6 words on the blank page. I dream about him every night. Connor saw them. His face went white. Good, he whispered. Then louder, performing for the gathered crowd. I hope you never sleep again. He threw her sketchbook back at her and stormed out. Madison trailing behind. The cafeteria exploded in whispers. Harper sat frozen, staring at her ruined drawings. Tyler's face, torn in half. The lake, crumpled beyond recognition. The truth, shredded like it had never existed. Someone slid into the seat Connor had vacated. Emma Rodriguez, her co-worker from Comics and Coffee, holding out a napkin. You're crying, Emma said gently. Harper touched her face. Wet. When had that started? That was brutal. Emma continued. Even for Connor. He's getting worse. Harper wiped her face with the napkin, found her pencil, wrote anniversary. Ah, Emma understood. Small towns taught you the rhythm of grief, how certain dates made people into versions of themselves they'd never recognize. You know, my mom says you saved that kid, says she was on shift at the hospital when they brought him in, said you did everything right. Harper looked at her sharply. Emma nodded. She's not supposed to talk about it, HIPAA and all that, but she's worried about you. Says Connor's got the story wrong. Says Tyler was stable when he left the lake. Whatever happened, happened after. The words sat between them like a confession. Harper wanted to grab them, hold them close, use them as shields against Connor's blame. But that wasn't how truth worked in Millbrook. Here, truth was a democracy, majority vote won, and Connor's version had campaign signs in every yard. Listen, Emma said. I know you won't defend yourself, but maybe you should. Maybe if people knew what really happened. Harper shook her head, wrote, Not my story to tell. Because it wasn't. Was it the medical details? The allergic reaction? The adoption records that might have saved Tyler, if anyone had known to check them, those belonged to the Bradley family, to Connor. And revealing them wouldn't bring Tyler back, would only add another layer to Connor's guilt, not just that he'd failed to protect his brother, but that he'd failed to know him, failed to ask the questions that might have put that medical alert bracelet on Tyler's wrist in the first place. You're too good for this place, Emma said. You know that, right? The way you just take it. Let him hurt you because he's hurting. Saints don't last long in Millbrook. Harper. Harper almost smiled. Saint. If only Emma knew the thoughts that ran through her head during Connor's tirades. The way her hands remembered their MMA training, muscle memory begging to end the confrontation with a sweep or a throw. How thin the line was between saint and sinner when someone was screaming in your face about a child you'd tried to save. Mr. Chen, her boss at the comic shop and the one who'd taught her those moves, always said violence was just trauma, speaking a language everyone understood. But understanding don't mean responding, he'd add, tapping his temple where shrapnel scars from Fallujah made constellations. Sometimes the bravest thing is to let someone else's war pass you by. Easy to say when the war wasn't following you from class to class. Leaving sticky notes on your locker. Draw it right. Tearing pages from your sketchbook during art class. Recruiting others to the cause of making Harper remember correctly. The warning bell rang. 5th period in 2 minutes. Harper gathered her things, ruined sketches, broken pencils, the weight of unspoken truth. Emma squeezed her shoulder before heading to her own class. Harper made it 3 steps before she saw them, stuck to her locker. fluttering like violent butterflies dozens of sticky notes. Each one the same 2 words in Connor's jagged handwriting: no moon, no moon, no moon. Other students walked past, averting their eyes. In Millbrook, you didn't interfere with grief. You let it run its course like a fever, hoping it would break before it burned everything down. Harper pulled the notes off one by one, counted them 23, one for each day until the anniversary. Connor had been planning this, calculating his campaign of correction. She stuffed them in her backpack, evidence of a boy drowning on dry land. Art class was her sanctuary. Mrs. Peterson understood silence, spoke fluent trauma, never pushed for explanations Harper couldn't give. The art room smelled like acrylic paint, and possibility 40 easels waiting for someone to make meaning from madness. Harper sat up in her usual corner, pulled out a fresh canvas, tried not to think about Connor's words, about the sketches he'd destroyed, about Tyler's face torn in half like a prophecy. She painted. Not the lake this time, not Tyler, not even that night. Instead, she painted what came before the spring festival, up the hill from Silver Lake, cotton candy pink skies, the Ferris wheel lights blinking like stars, families laughing, kids running with sparklers, the whole town pretending winter was over, even though Michigan never let go that easy. And there, in the corner of her painting, 2 brothers, the older one lifting the younger onto his shoulders so he could see the fireworks better. Both of them painted in silhouette, backlit by celebration. No faces to haunt anyone, just love, just before. "That's beautiful, Harper." Mrs. Peterson appeared at her elbow, voice soft. "Is this a memory?" Harper nodded, added another brushstroke, Tyler's small hand pointing at the sky, where the first firework was about to bloom. "Sometimes," Peterson said, "the kindest thing we can do is remember people in their joy, before the world taught them pain." She moved on to other students, leaving Harper with her painting and the sound of someone crying 2 easels over. She looked Connor's friend Mason, trying to paint water but only managing ugly brown swirls. "I can't get it right," Mason muttered. "The color. It wasn't blue that night. Wasn't black. It was—" He trailed off, brush shaking. Harper knew. The water had been the color of weak coffee, murky with spring runoff and stirred-up sediment. Nothing like the clear blue lake of summer postcards. Tyler would have hated it if he'd seen it clearly. Would have climbed right back onto the dock, waited for better conditions. But 7-year-olds practicing bravery in the dark didn't check water quality. They just jumped. She wanted to tell Mason it was okay, that the color didn't matter. That trauma painted everything brown anyway, turned memories into muddy water no matter how clear they'd been originally. But the words stayed locked, and Mason kept painting, kept failing, kept trying. The sound started small, a whisper from the hallway, then louder, running feet, voices raised in excitement or alarm. Mrs. Peterson frowned, moved toward the door. It burst open before she reached it. Connor stood there, breathing hard, holding something in his fist. His eyes found Harper immediately. "Found it," he said. "Proof." The class went silent. Mrs. Peterson stepped forward. "Connor, you need to—" "No," he pushed past her, coming straight for Harper. "She needs to see this. Needs to admit what she's done." He slammed something onto Harper's easel, right in the middle of her festival painting. A photo, water-damaged and faded, but clear enough the spring festival, 1 year ago. The timestamp in the corner, 10:43 p.m. "See," Connor pointed at the sky in the photo. No moon, clouds. It was overcast that night. Weather report confirms it. So all your little drawings, all your memories there lies. Harper stared at the photo, at the cloudy sky, at the timestamp, 10:43. The festival, up the hill from the lake. But Tyler hadn't gone missing until after 11. She'd found him at 11:26. And by then, she grabbed her brush, added to her painting. Fast, desperate strokes. The clock tower visible over the festival booths. The hands pointing to 10:45. Then, in the corner, barely visible a break in the clouds. Light starting to peek through. Connor watched her paint, saw what she was showing him. That weather could change. That 40 minutes was enough time for clouds to part. That the moon she remembered could be real, even if his photo showed storms. No, he grabbed her brush. Stop changing things. Stop making it. His voice cracked. Just stop. Paint smeared across both their hands. Red. Like blood. Like the sunrise that had come eventually, revealing a world forever changed. Connor stared at the color on his skin, and something in his eyes shifted from anger to something rawer. Do you know what I told him? The words came out broken. When he asked to come to the festival with me and Madison, I told him he was too young, too annoying, told him to stay home and watch cartoons like a baby. The brush dropped from his paint-stained fingers. So he went to the lake instead, to practice being brave, to prove he wasn't a baby. Connor's voice dropped to almost nothing. And you were there. You saw him. You could have stopped him, could have called someone, could have... Harper moved without thinking, grabbed her painting still wet, still incomplete, and held it up, pointed at the brothers on shoulders, at the joy, at the before. Connor looked, really looked, and saw himself, lifting Tyler high, both of them laughing at something now lost forever. I remember that, he whispered. His favorite spot. Said he could see the whole world from up there. Harper nodded, dipped her finger in paint blue this time, sky blue, hope blue, and added one more detail. A small speech bubble coming from the tiny Tyler figure, best brother ever. Connor made a sound like breaking, fell to his knees right there in the art room, in front of everyone, sobbing like the 18-year-old boy he was instead of the vengeful man he'd been pretending to be. I'm sorry, he gasped out. Tyler, I'm so sorry. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. The class stood frozen, witnessing something too private for public spaces. Mrs. Peterson moved toward Connor, but Harper got there first, knelt beside him, paint-stained hands hovering uncertain before settling on his shaking shoulders. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned into her, this girl he'd tortured for months, this keeper of his brother's last moments, this mirror of his own guilt. She held him while he cried. Two teenagers drowning in different versions of the same grief. I see him too, Connor whispered into her shoulder. Every night, asking why I didn't save him. Harper's throat worked, pushed past the silence that had protected her for a year. One word. Rusty, from disuse. Same. Connor pulled back, stared at her. You talked. She nodded, tried again. We both failed. No, Connor shook his head. You tried, you dove. You did CPR. You failed. The word came easier now, like admitting it broke some dam. Still, failed. They stayed there, kneeling in spilled paint, surrounded by art that tried to make sense of senseless loss. The photo Connor had brought his evidence. His proof lay forgotten in a puddle of red. Finally, Mason approached, helped Connor to his feet. "Come on, man, let's get you cleaned up." But Connor wasn't done. He looked at Harper, really looked, maybe for the first time since that night. "The moon," he said quietly. "Was it really there?" Harper nodded. Full. Another nod. "Did it?" He swallowed. "Did it help?" Seeing, she understood what he was really asking. Did the moon make it easier to find Tyler? Did light help in the darkness? Did anything help when a 7-year-old was drowning and you were the only one there? "Yes," she managed. Connor closed his eyes. When he opened them, some of the hardness had gone. "Okay," he said. "Okay." 3 days before the anniversary, everything unraveled. Harper stood in the hospital records room, Emma's mother beside her. Mrs. Rodriguez had taken a massive risk, using her lunch break to sneak Harper into the archives. "5 minutes," she whispered. "That's all I can give you." The file was thin. Tyler Bradley, age 7. Admitted 11:58 p.m., April 15th. Cause of death: anaphylactic shock secondary to morphine administration. Time of death: 12:21 a.m. Harper's hands shook as she read. 23 minutes. Tyler had survived the drowning, survived the rescue, survived the ambulance ride only to die from medicine meant to help him. An allergy nobody knew about because the adoption records were sealed. Because the medical alert bracelet that should have warned them was covered in lake mud. "Harper," Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was gentle. "There's more." She flipped to another file. Adoption records, unsealed by court order after Tyler's death. Harper read the biological parents' names and felt the world tilt. Michael Sinclair, her father, who died when she was 2. Tyler had been her brother, her actual brother, and she'd never known. The door burst open. Connor stood there, Lucas Mitchell beside him, both breathing hard. "I knew it," Connor said. "Lucas told me you were—" He saw the files. The truth written in medical terminology. His face went white. "No." "Connor, you need to leave," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "This is confidential." "He was allergic," Connor's voice cracked, "to morphine. But that means—" He looked at Harper. "You saved him. You actually saved him from drowning. And then they—" "It wasn't anyone's fault," Harper heard herself say. The words came clearer now, like speaking the truth made it easier. The bracelet was muddy. The paramedics couldn't read it. They gave him standard protocol for near-drowning victims. Connor grabbed the file. Read it. Read it again. Then he saw the adoption record. The names. "Sinclair," he breathed. You were his sister." The word felt foreign in her mouth. Sister to a brother she'd never known she had. "Half-sister, same father." Lucas made a sound like a wounded animal. "I should have told someone about the bracelet. I knew he was allergic. I saw them give him the shot, and I thought they knew. I thought it was okay." They stood in that small room, 4 people bound by different pieces of the same tragedy. Connor holding proof that destroyed his narrative. Harper finally understanding why Tyler had looked familiar even in the dark. Lucas carrying the weight of knowledge that might have saved everyone. Mrs. Rodriguez watching it all with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much preventable death. "We have to tell people," Connor said finally. "The truth, all of it. No, Harper's voice was firm. It won't bring him back. It'll just hurt your parents more. But everyone thinks they blame you. Let them. Connor stared at her. You do that. Keep taking the hate to protect my family. Harper thought of Tyler's face in the moonlight. Her brother's face. Though she hadn't known it then, thought of the Bradleys, who'd lost a son they'd chosen to love, who didn't need to know that love hadn't been enough to save him. Yes, she said simply. The anniversary came like a storm everyone saw building, but no one could stop. Harper sat in the cafeteria. Same spot, same sketchbook. But something was different. Connor's sticky note campaign had stopped. The whispers followed her still, but quieter now. Uncertain, she was drawing Tyler again, not drowning, not dying, just sitting on the dock, feet in the water, smiling at something beyond the page. Her brother, though the word still felt impossible. That's good, a voice said. Belle Carson, Connor's cousin from 2 towns over. Really captures him. Harper looked up, immediately on guard. She'd heard about Belle. Tough, protective, the kind of cousin who'd drive 50 miles to avenge family. Connor told me, Belle said, sliding into the seat across from her. About the hospital, about the files. She leaned forward. But see, I don't buy it. I think you're manipulating him, making up medical records, playing the victim. Harper said nothing, just kept drawing. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Belle's voice was sharp. My aunt and uncle are destroyed. Connor's falling apart. And you just sit here, drawing. Like you're some innocent. She is innocent. Lucas Mitchell stood beside their table, trembling but determined. I was there. I saw everything. Harper saved Tyler. He was alive because of her. Belle turned on him. You're what? 10? You don't know. I'm 9. Lucas's voice cracked. And I know what I saw. I know Tyler was breathing when they took him away. I know Harper did everything right. And I know... His voice dropped. I know I should have cleaned his bracelet. Should have told the paramedics about his allergies. But I was scared. And I thought they knew and... Lucas. Harper found her voice. Stop! But he was crying now, words pouring out like water through a broken dam. Tyler was my best friend. We did everything together. And that night, he just wanted to practice floating, just wanted to be brave like his brother. And I was supposed to watch him, but I was playing on my phone, and when I looked up he was already in the water and... Belle stood up. This is bullshit. You're all protecting her. She turned to Harper. But I know the truth. You're poison. Everything you touch. She grabbed Harper's sketchbook. Harper reached for it instinctively, and Belle shoved her. Hard. Harper fell backward off the cafeteria bench, her shirt catching on the table edge. The fabric tore with a sound like screaming. The cafeteria went silent. Harper stood slowly. Her torn shirt revealed bruises along her ribs, not from Belle, but from her MMA training the night before, working the heavy bag until her body ached, trying to punch away memories of a brother she'd never known she'd lost. Oh, now you want to fight? Belle stepped closer. Good. Show everyone who you really are. 3 more students stood up, Belle's friends from her school. They formed a half circle, backing Harper against the wall. Someone should have intervened, should have called for help. But anniversary grief made everyone stupid, turned them into spectators at their own tragedy. You know what I think. Belle's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. I think Connor's protecting you because he's weak. Because he can't face what you did. But I'm not weak. She lunged. Harper's body moved without thought. A year of training with Mr. Chen, of channeling grief into controlled violence, took over. She slipped Belle's grab, used her momentum against her, executed a perfect hip throw. Belle hit the ground hard but safe, controlled force, just like Mr. Chen taught. But Belle's friends rushed in, 3-on-1. Harper's muscle memory kicked into overdrive. Duck, weave, redirect. She didn't throw punches, only used their aggression against them. Aikido principles. Water flowing around rocks, until one girl grabbed her torn shirt from behind, yanking her off balance. Another went for her hair. The third raised a fist. That's when Harper stopped being water. The elbow strike was pure instinct. Textbook perfect. The girl holding her hair dropped instantly, unconscious before she hit the floor. Harper spun, swept the legs of the second attacker, followed her down with a controlled ground strike that stopped just short of serious damage. The third girl backed away, hands up. "We're done. We're done." Harper stood in the center of the cafeteria, breathing hard, surrounded by Belle's moaning friends. Her shirt hung in tatters. Her carefully maintained silence had shattered, and everyone had seen her become exactly what they'd always feared: dangerous. "There she is," Belle said from the floor, smiling despite her pain. "There's the real Harper Sinclair, the fighter, the one who could have saved Tyler if she'd really tried." The words hit harder than any punch. "That's enough." Connor walked through the crowd, Mason and Emma flanking him. He helped Belle to her feet, then turned to face the cafeteria. "Listen up," he said, voice carrying. "All of you, I've got something to say, and you're going to hear it." He pulled out his phone, projected an image onto the cafeteria wall, Tyler's adoption papers, the ones Harper had begged him not to share. "Tyler was adopted," Connor announced. "Most of you knew that. What you didn't know, what we didn't know, was that he had a biological sister. Someone who never knew he existed until after he died." The image changed. Harper's birth certificate. Same father listed. Harper Sinclair didn't just try to save a random kid that night. Connor's voice broke. She saved her brother, her actual brother, and she's been letting all of us torture her for a year rather than tell us the truth, because she thought it would hurt my family more to know. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Belle's face went white. "But that's not even the worst part," Connor continued. He pulled up the medical report. "Tyler didn't die from drowning. He was allergic to morphine, something listed on a medical alert bracelet that got covered in mud during the rescue. The paramedics gave him standard treatment. No one's fault. Just tragic timing." He turned to Harper. "She saved him from the lake, brought him back, and then medicine killed him. And I spent a year blaming the one person who tried hardest to save him." The cafeteria was tomb silent. "So yeah," Connor said, looking at Belle. "She can fight. She's dangerous, because she's been training every night, turning her grief into something physical, because we wouldn't let her grieve any other way, because every time she tried to draw, or speak, or just exist, we reminded her of the brother she couldn't save, her own brother." He walked to Harper, took off his letterman jacket, the one Tyler had always wanted to wear, draped it over her torn shirt. "I'm sorry," he said, "not just for this year, for that night, for not being there, for making you carry this alone." Harper looked at him, at the jacket, at the cafeteria full of people finally seeing truth instead of story. And for the first time in 365 days, she let herself cry, not silent tears, but real sobs that shook her whole body. Connor held her while she cried. Then Lucas joined them, this 9-year-old boy carrying too much weight. Then Emma, Mason, even some of Belle's friends. Shame replacing aggression. The principal's voice crackled over the intercom, calling for order, threatening suspensions. But nobody moved. They stood in that cafeteria, a small town learning to grieve together instead of apart. Later, Harper found herself at Silver Lake. Not alone this time, Connor beside her, both carrying flowers. The Bradleys were there too, placing teddy bears where Tyler had been pulled from the water. "We'd like to adopt you, Mrs. Thur," Bradley said suddenly. "If you'd want that. Tyler would have loved having a sister." Harper couldn't speak, nodded through fresh tears. As the sun set, Connor pointed at the sky. "Look, the moon, rising full and bright over Silver Lake, exactly as it had 1 year ago." "You were right," he said quietly. "There was a moon. I just couldn't see it through my grief." Harper found her voice one more time. "We both see it now." They stood there as Millbrook gathered around them, not for tragedy this time, but for healing. Someone started singing a hymn, then another, voices joining, harmonizing, filling the space where blame used to live. Belle approached, arm in a sling but eyes clear. "I'm sorry. I thought—" "You loved him," Harper said simply. "We all did. And maybe that was enough. Love and loss and learning to live with both. Learning that some stories don't have villains, just people drowning in different depths of the same water." The moon watched it all, full and forgiving, painting Silver Lake in light.